And welcome back to Lantern Corp. Today on the Lantern Corp, we have, I think I might have forgot to write the full name, Clint something. We'll ask the question, what is the Lantern Corp of Hiccup from the How to Train Your Dragon franchise? And I'll tell you what, first of all, I love the How to Train Your Dragon movies, particularly the second one I think is the best one, honestly. But the way the third one ended, the third one was such a beautiful ending and made so much sense. And then that narration, when you hear the volcano roar, volcanoes erupt, that's a dragon roaring under the earth. Like, God, that is such a beautiful franchise. Pixar may be the king of those films, like the animated family films. But damn it all, if DreamWorks can't throw some contenders into the ring sometimes. I love them. But yeah, Hiccup was the lead in those movies. And I'll tell you what, when really going over it, Hiccup runs the gamut a little bit. Now, let's get a couple of these right out of the way that we know he's not going to be a Lantern for. He is not a Lantern of Death. He's not dead by the end of the series. He never died, and he's not the embodiment of death. He's not a Lantern of happiness either, because he's not been happy his entire life. It is very rare, but it's very hard to be a Gold Lantern, because you basically need to know nothing but happiness your entire life. I will not include the ultraviolence of shame, and that is due to the fact that early Hiccup may have felt shame, and there are points in the series that Hiccup could be a Lantern of shame. But if you're talking about the overall, then no, Hiccup is not a Lantern of shame. Just no, because he's just overcome a lot of odds. And last but not least, the big one I want to bring up before I talk about more that he's not doesn't qualify for. He is not an avarice Lantern. There's been no real greed in this character. He's really just been trying to help others. Which, let's get into that now. Right out of the gate, Green Lantern makes a lot of sense. He is the main character. He had to overcome a lot of things he was afraid of. And he ultimately came out smelling like a rose, meaning the leader of his tribe. Getting married to the girl he loves. He is kind of like the textbook definition of a Green Lantern. He had a lot of willpower, was overcoming odds, and had to overcome a lot of things he was afraid of. So that's like a textbook Green Lantern thing. He is not a Lantern of Fear, though. And I'm now going down the list in terms of the order there you saw on the thumbnail. He's not a Lantern of Fear, though. He's just not someone, though he's got authority and people respect him, he's not someone people are afraid of. He does not inspire fear. So that's a no. He is also not a Lantern of Rage. While he's certainly been angry, it's not a driving factor for him. He does not have this unbridled rage in him that can make him a Red Lantern. And even at his angriest we see him in the series, at least for the movies, he still doesn't have that fire that would be a Red Lantern ring. So I do not see him as a Red Lantern. I cannot see him holding a ring of red. Some of the villains, sure. Hell, his dad in the first movie, I could maybe see a Red Lantern, maybe. But one of the other rings he definitely could qualify for, I think, is love. He actually, because when you really look at it, everything he's doing is for the love of Hiccup, love of his tribe, the love of his family, his dad, the love of his mom, once we see her in the second one, the love of his girlfriend. Like, everything he's doing is coming from love. Love is arguably one of the strongest candidates for him. But we're not done yet, because there is also the Lantern Corps of Compassion. And this is a guy who's tries to be very compassionate. When was it Drago Bloodfist? That was his name? When he comes in the second one, he tries to say, no, there's another way. Let me show. Like, Evan's like, no, I will show you. And yeah, it's like even to people who don't serve him, he tries to be compassionate. He really does. And as is the strongest trait, that one might be debatable if that's his strongest trait or not. But still, he definitely has the makings of a Lantern of Compassion. No doubt about it. And finally, we got to bring up the final one, and that's hope. Hiccup is the one who brought hope back to his tribe, to his village, to his town, if you will. This is due to the fact that he introduced them all to dragons, the world of the dragons, and how they may be able to live with them. And then he ultimately became the chief and had to lead people on and inspire hope. And he also had to keep faith in that things would work out, and things did ultimately work out. Now, I said last, but there is actually one other one we need to talk about, and that is the White Lantern Corps of Life. No joke, Hiccup actually could be a White Lantern. A, pretty obvious, but he is alive. He's a living being. But he's also fathered children. He has 2 children. So that there he's created life. But he's also protected life multiple times when it comes to protecting the dragons. This is a guy who actually valued life and went above and beyond to try to protect it. So that is really all that being a White Lantern asks, is that you try to protect life and that you, if you can, create life. And he's done both. So I heard something. That breaks down then the question, which Lantern Corps does he ultimately belong to? Is it the Lantern Corps of life? Is it the Lantern Corps of hope, compassion, love, or will? So this is where it gets tricky. It honestly does. Because a couple of these I think I can X off. I think the first one I'm going to X off is the Lantern Corps compassion. And by the way, there is a scenario where he could literally be a Lantern of any of these. That's how kind of close together I think these are on the emotional spectrum for him. But that said, I think compassion's the least likely, only because I think all the other ones override his compassion. Because after, in the third movie, for example, and later in the second movie, he loses his compassion for the villain. Especially in the second one, he loses it, and he doesn't have compassion for the villain at all in the third one. So while compassion certainly is a very dominant trait in his personality, he knows when to not show it. He knows when people don't deserve it. So I think I would X out compassion. The next one I think I would X off is hope. And it's weird to say, but I think the reason for that is, after he brought the dragons to the village, the hope that he brought is great, but it was no longer hope, it was the reality. And then so whatever hope he's inspiring after that is very much dwindled down. And then, there are people who are at odds, and he obviously loses hope for a little bit sometimes. So, I mean, I want to say it's a stronger candidate than this, but I just don't think it is. So that leaves us with will, love, and life. Will, love, and life. Oh boy, I probably am going to take life out of the equation as well. I just don't see it as, even though yes, he's fathered children, therefore he has created life and he's saved life. I mean, I think there has to be more to it. He's not truly the embodiment of life. He's not he's not as lively as someone like, say, a Naruto, who in one of the videos I used as an option, or the Avatar, where I think very much was the embodiment of it, who would have been a White Lantern hands down, in my opinion. I just don't think he is really that embodiment of life. Which leaves us now with will and love. And between these two, will and love, my pick ultimately is going to have to go down to love. The reason for this is, while he does have he clearly has, and I think it's honestly a toss-up. If you thought more will, not going to argue with it. While he had to overcome great fear, and he definitely has willpower, and he's got ingenuity. That's another thing. He's got a lot of ingenuity and imagination. He'll make a great Lantern regardless because of his imagination. But he has still succumbed to fear. He succumbed to loss of faith. He's succumbed to a lot of things that have tested his will, and he has failed those tests, but ultimately come back around. Now, you may make an argument that's a stronger case for will, but the fact is that his will can be broken a lot easier than the love he shares for the people and the creatures around him. And really, when it ultimately came down to it, it was the fact that he bonded and loved Hiccup like not a pet, but as a member of the. I mean, I think of my pets as a member of the family, but I think you know what I mean, almost like a brother. That's a good way. They really did look at Hiccup kind of like as a big scaly brother. So yeah, and that love he had for not just him, but his father, his mother, his friends, his girlfriend, a future wife, now his children. I think that ultimately carries over into him actually being a Sapphire Lantern of love. So ultimately, my pick for him is the Star Sapphires of love. But that is just my opinion. What do you think of the comments below? Until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. What would you do different for Lantern Corp if you would do a different Lantern Corp? Let me know. Until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And I'll see you folks next time. Later.